Tonight we are gathered together to remember the events that happened to Jesus on his way to Calvary, the way of the cross. Across the world, people do this in a variety of ways. They look at pictures, sculptures, carvings, or like our parish, stained glass windows. This evening, we have the opportunity to reflect and see shadow silhouettes representing the stations in Jesus' last moments before his crucifixion. We invite you to reflect with us and be present to the message of our time together. As you look at and hear the retelling of Jesus' walk to Calvary, reflect on what this message means to you this Lent, the work we have done as a parish, and accepted our daily challenges. How does tonight's prayerful opportunity strengthen your Lenten promises? Let us remember that we are in the holy presence of God. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. My Lord, Jesus Christ, you made this journey to die for me with unspeakable love, and I have so many times ungratefully abandoned you. But now I love you with all my heart, and because I love you, I am sincerely sorry for ever having offended you. Pardon me, my God, and permit me to accompany you on this journey. You go to die for love of me. I want my beloved Redeemer to die for the love of you. My Jesus, I will live and die always united to you.
The first station, Jesus is sentenced to die. Did you ever have a friend do something wrong to you? Perhaps you told them a secret and they promised they wouldn't tell, and then they told someone else. Or maybe you had a good friend that you really got along with, and then one day that friend did something that was absolutely not nice to you. Pontius Pilate was the man that the Roman emperor sent to rule over the Jewish people in Palestine. They were such a hard group of people to please. When the leaders of the people brought Jesus to Pontius Pilate, he was afraid. The people wanted him to kill Jesus. They told him that Jesus claimed to be the Son of God. When Pontius Pilate heard that, he trembled. He did not want to kill the Son of God, but because he was so afraid that the Jewish leaders would tell the emperor that he was a traitor and not doing his job, he did not speak up. Even though he knew it was wrong, Pontius Pilate did what the people asked for. He condemned Jesus to die on a cross. Have you ever been like Pontius Pilate? Perhaps you saw someone getting bullied, and even though you wanted to help the person, you did not. You were afraid the bully would pick on you next. We do not want to be like Pontius Pilate. Even when we are afraid, we need to speak up. When we see someone that is hurt, we need to help them. We need the strength to say no when someone is asking us to do something we know we shouldn't.
The second station, Jesus has to carry his own cross. There's a criminal named Barabbas. Barabbas was in jail with Jesus because he had tried to kill some Roman soldiers. He was a real criminal. Pontius Pilate asked the people who they wanted to be free, Barabbas or Jesus. It's hard to believe that they chose Barabbas. Barabbas saw the soldiers put a heavy cross on Jesus' shoulders. Barabbas could not believe that Jesus did not fight back. Jesus knew they had to carry the cross a long way. He knew that would be hard, but Jesus also knew that God was with him. The cross was rough and heavy. Jesus was weak. He was tired and he was hurting badly. Jesus lifted that cross. He carried it all the way to Calvary, the place where he would die. The cross is often called the wood of salvation. On the day of Jesus' death, he changed the cross into a sign of hope and salvation for each of us. This shows us that all the bad in the world can be changed by God's love. What would you have done if you were in a crowd of people? Would you have stood there and told Pilate that what was happening was wrong? Would you have been strong and brave to do the right thing?
The third station, Jesus falls for the first time. King Herod was standing by his palace window. He saw Jesus walking by. Jesus was weak and tired. The cross was so very heavy and incredibly painful. Jesus' strength was failing, and he was finding it harder and harder to carry the cross. Under the weight of the cross, Jesus fell to the ground. No one helped him, and it seemed as if he was not going to be able to get up. With courage and patience, Jesus got up very slowly and began to walk the road again. He did this for us, for you, and for me. He did this out of love. Sometimes it seems as if our worries, fears, and sadness may weigh down on us, like the cross did on Jesus' back. We may even feel too tired to go on, but we need to remember that Jesus did. He never gave up. When he fell, he got back up. We can too.
The fourth station, Jesus meets his mother Mary. Jesus' mother Mary was always a faithful follower of her son and his teachings. So many times she walked with him as he taught about God's love, cured the sick, and helped those that were in pain. Like any mother, she loved her son. He was her little boy. She remembered holding him in her arms when he was born. She had watched him grow up. When he was 12 years old, she and Joseph had lost him for many hours. Finally, they found him in the temple. Jesus told them that he had to be about his Father's business. At the time, Mary had not known what he meant by that. Mary felt terribly sad watching her son suffer and bleed, but she believed he knew what he must do for the world. She looked into his eyes and saw only love. Love for her and love for all of us. Without words, Jesus knew that his mother loved him. He had learned so much from her about the love for God we all must have. Sweet Jesus, please help me to always stand by the people who I love and those who love me. Help me to make my family proud of me.
The fifth station, Simon helps Jesus carry his cross. The cross seemed to be getting heavier with every step Jesus took. The soldiers noticed Jesus getting weaker. He was staggering and was about to fall under the load on his shoulders. A crowd of people were gathered watching this all unfold. A landowner named Simon from the town Cyrene had come up to Jerusalem from the fields where he worked. Simon saw the big crowd of people. He went to see what was going on. Suddenly, a soldier came toward the crowd and grabbed Simon. Simon did not know what was going on. The soldiers forced Simon to help Jesus carry his cross. Simon of Cyrene was not one of Jesus' followers, and he was not happy to help. He did not refuse because he was too scared, but he was definitely angry. Why him? He had done nothing wrong, and now here he was with this heavy cross on his back. Simon looked at Jesus' face. Jesus smiled as if to thank him. All of a sudden, the cross seemed lighter. Suddenly, Simon was glad to help Jesus carry the cross. Simon's life was forever changed by that moment he shared with Jesus. He began to help those that were weaker than he was. This is what is meant by the love of God and loving others. Have you ever, like Simon of Cyrene, been forced to help someone? We must remember that we are here on this earth to be a blessing to each other. We are the hands and feet of Christ, so we must show the face of Christ to each other.
The sixth station, Veronica wipes the face of Jesus. Crowds had gathered all along the roadside on the way to Calvary. Many of the people were there to see Jesus die. There were others, though, whose hearts broke as they saw Jesus' cruel suffering. A woman named Veronica stepped out from the crowd into the roadway. As Jesus held his cross, she attempted to get near him. A soldier almost hit her, but she did not let that stop her from getting closer to Jesus. When Veronica reached Jesus, she held out a cloth. perhaps her own veil, and wiped the blood and sweat from his face. Her simple kindness was one of the most loving things that happened to him. Veronica did not do something huge, but it made a big difference. We must remember that even the most simple acts of kindness show love. Jesus wants us to love each other. In fact, Jesus wants us to love those that do not love or even like us. Veronica remembered hearing Jesus say, "As long as you give a cup of water to the least of your brothers and sisters, you give it to me." Here, Jesus is telling us that when we do kind things for other people, we are really doing kind things for him. The same goes when we hurt other people. If we hurt someone, whether with our words or our bodies, we are hurting Jesus.
The seventh station. Jesus falls a second time. Caiaphas was the chief priest of the temple in Jerusalem. People came to him quite upset. They shouted, "That fellow Jesus is dangerous. He claims to be God. He says he can forgive sins. Who does he think he is?" Caiaphas knew Jesus was a carpenter from Nazareth, but Caiaphas had to protect his country from the Romans. He thought it was a better idea to get Jesus out of the way than to make the Romans angry with him. So Caiaphas had Jesus arrested. Now, here Jesus was. It was harder and harder for him to stand. He was out of breath and he had no strength left. He stumbled, he staggered, he fell once more. Caiaphas saw Jesus fall under the cross and he laughed to himself. But Caiaphas was surprised when Jesus again stood up, lifted his cross, and began to walk forward. Caiaphas wondered how this could be possible. How was it that this carpenter from Nazareth was able to continue? Caiaphas did not know at the time what we know now. First, Jesus was able to continue and bear the suffering because of his love of God and love of us. Second, with God, nothing is impossible.
The eighth station, Jesus meets the women of Jerusalem. The women of Jerusalem had heard Jesus speak a few times. Sometimes they would bake bread and give it to Jesus and his apostles for a snack. When they saw Jesus in terrible pain, they began to cry. Perhaps at that moment, the women remembered how he used to lift their children and hold them close to his heart. Now they wished that they could hold Jesus in their arms. The women saw Jesus bleeding. They saw the crown of thorns and how much pain he was in. It was too much for them to take, and they began to cry. But Jesus stopped and said, "Do not cry for me. Rather cry for yourselves and for your children." The women did not know what that meant, but Jesus was telling them that the cruelty of the world would touch their children, just as it had touched him. His eyes were filled with the love of God and love of us. Though we live in this world, Jesus does not want us to concern ourselves with the material things in the world. Jesus wants us to be the church and work to build God's kingdom, so that one day we may all rejoice in heaven with him.
The ninth station, Jesus falls a third time. The crowd continued to watch Jesus struggle to carry the cross upon which he would die. Many began to mock him. Longinus was the Roman soldier who had made the crown of thorns and placed it on Jesus' head. He was the one who would force Jesus to get up each and every time he fell under the cross. Jesus came to Calvary Hill and tried to climb it. He had lost so much strength. He was bleeding and was exhausted. Under the heavy weight of the cross, Jesus fell again as if he was defeated. But he was not defeated. He struggled to get back up. He would not be defeated this way because Jesus had chosen to live the way of the cross out of the love for God and love for us. Sometimes we fall too, when we do things that are not the nicest and go against Jesus' love for us. But Jesus will always pull us back up when we fall into sin. He will always forgive us.
The 10th station. Jesus is stripped of his clothes. Having been able to stand again and lift his cross, Jesus took those final steps to the top of Calvary Hill. The soldiers who had guarded his way up the cross let Jesus drop the cross to the ground. As Jesus stood there in front of the crowds, he was again mocked and humiliated. The soldiers pulled off his clothes, leaving him standing there with barely anything. He was being treated like a common criminal. 2 criminals hung on either side of Jesus. Both were thieves. One of the thieves was not at all sorry for his crimes. He did not understand why Jesus was allowing this. Why did Jesus stand there and to allow himself to be stripped of his clothing and his dignity? If he was so great, why didn't he free himself and the thief? The other thief thought differently. He used to rob people's homes until he was caught and condemned to die beside Jesus, the carpenter of Nazareth. Unlike the soldiers, we are called to treat everyone with dignity and respect. We are to clothe people with love.
The 11th station. Jesus is nailed to the cross. In the time of Jesus, many criminals died on a cross. They were forced to die, tied to the cross for all to see. But Jesus was not tied to the cross. His hands and feet were nailed to the wood before his cross was lifted, so that all could see. Everyone saw now that this preacher and prophet could not escape. Jesus, who had released people from the prisons of blindness, sin, sickness, and even death, was now nailed to the cross. How could he bear this pain and suffering? It could be because of his great love of God and us. The two other criminals watched from their own crosses and saw Jesus as the soldiers nailed him to the cross. They were surprised to hear Jesus say, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." One criminal looked over and asked Jesus to remember him when he came into his kingdom. Through the pain, sweat, and blood, Jesus said, "Today you will be with me in paradise." Jesus promised the criminals that he would meet them in heaven. Jesus promises that to us as well. It is important for us to live our lives the way God and Jesus want us to.
The 12th station. Jesus dies on the cross. They called her Mary Magdalene. She did some terrible things before she met Jesus. One day, after she heard him speak about love and forgiveness, she went to see him. She began to cry and washed his feet with her tears. Jesus forgave her right then and there. She never forgot his love. Mary Magdalene was one of the few disciples that stood next to the cross to the very end. Jesus called out to God, for he was feeling frightened and abandoned. He was about to die and was full of pain. But more important than his pain was his love for God and his care for his mother and the people around him. He asked them to care for one another. Mary Magdalene was there when Jesus asked for something to drink. She was there when he cried out, "It is finished." With all strength drained and his fear relieved, Jesus gave his spirit over to God and died upon the cross. To the end, he spoke of his love of God and love of us.
When
The 13th station, Jesus is removed from the cross. Salome was the mother of James and John, 2 apostles. Her son James ran away when the soldiers came after Jesus, but Salome and John did not run away. They stayed with Mary, Jesus' mother. Salome did not understand why Jesus had to suffer. It was only later that she saw the light, but on that Friday, she knew she needed to be there to help Jesus, to help his body off the cross. She had to be there to comfort his poor mother. When Jesus was only a baby, Mary was told that he would be rejected by many and that her heart would be broken. When her child, Jesus, died on the cross, some friends gently took his body down from the cross and placed it on Mary's arms. Mary held Jesus like she had when he was a baby. Now his body had no life in it. Mary's heart broke with sadness, emptiness, and grief. She remembered her happy days with her son. She remembered how proud he had made her. Then she remembered the prophecy. Jesus had been rejected for his love of God and his love of us.
The 14th station, Jesus is laid in the tomb. When Jesus was born in Bethlehem, the lively new baby rested in a borrowed manger. His mother cared for him with love, joy, and tenderness. When he died on Calvary Hill, there was no place to rest his body. Nicodemus and Joseph helped put the body of Jesus in a tomb in a nearby garden. Joseph was braver than Nicodemus, for he had the courage to ask the Romans for the body. After crucifixion, however, Nicodemus became braver. He was angry and ashamed of himself for not stepping forward earlier to defend Jesus. Nicodemus helped lay the body of Jesus in the tomb. At the time, he did not know it would be there for such a short time. With love, broken hearts, and great tenderness, Jesus' mother and friends cared for his body. They washed him and anointed him with perfumes. Then they covered it.
Jesus' way of the cross did not end in sadness, but rather in joy. On Easter Sunday, he rose from the tomb gloriously alive. One day, Jesus promises us that he will be back. Until then, we are called to love one another, to learn all that we can about God and Jesus, and to live our lives the way Jesus did. As you reflected on the images and stations tonight, we, the 8th grade, pray that your Lenten season has been a time of spiritual growth and understanding of the ways to love Jesus more and to love those around you too.